Okay, if you guys remember, I did an unboxing and like first build impressions video on this Bexgear 5-string bass I got off Amazon. We're finally doing the full build video for this, so let's go ahead and dive into it right now. All right, starting off, we're sanding the raw body. You can use a wood grain filler if you want. I know many people on my videos complain that I don't use a wood grain filler. That's entirely up to you. If you want to do that, be my guest. I think just using a sealer and a can or a few cans of sealer works just as well. It would potentially cut down on build time and cost, but you can do exactly whatever you want with your own guitar builds. Sand it flat just to make sure it looks all nice, even and smooth, and then move on to the next step. As for the new bridge that I'm putting on this, it didn't necessarily line up with the factory drilled holes. So essentially all I'm doing right here is taking like a bamboo skewer, put it in the drill and the chuck of the drill, and then some sandpaper. And then I basically went through and just kind of shaved those down as like a miniature lathe. I had to fill the holes from the factory where they drilled the holes for the bridge. So essentially I had to take these and make little dowel sticks so I could fill those holes in to re-drill for the new bridge to fit and screw in properly. Use a tack rag or something, wipe the body down, and then activate your can of sealer, or in this instance, I like to use a 2K clear coat. It works just as well. Activate the aerosol can of 2K clear coat and shake it up for about 2 minutes, and then go ahead and start applying the clear. As for applying the clear coat, or aka sealer in this instance, I basically just try to cover the body as much as possible. I'm not necessarily worried about runs at this point. I use the entire can. It gets me about 3 to 4 good coats. As you can see in this little clip, you can still see some of the wood grain. This was after I think the first or second coat. Give it about 15 minutes in between each coat and then apply another coat. Going to continue to build up the clear coat. After you finish the entire can, it should look pretty glossy and everything like that. Let that cure for at least, I would say, a week minimum. I normally let these go for about 2 weeks in between each, so it takes me a little bit over a month and a half to 2 months to build this fully, but this is just my own method. You can do it however you want. You can use a wood grain filler if you want to cut out one of these aerosol can steps. That's entirely up to you. Everybody does everything differently. This is just what I have found works for me. Again, after the very last coat, I let this cure for about 2 weeks, and then I will move on to the next step. Now, I tried to do something I've never done before, which is turn this into a string through body. I tried to line up these holes as best as I possibly could, and they pretty much all lined up except for the bottom B string for this 5-string bass. This was a little bit difficult, especially doing this for the very first time. Essentially, I taped off the drill bit for the depth of the ferrules and basically just kind of lined everything up and tried to get them as straight and even as possible. Unfortunately, the low B string on this bass kind of walked a little bit, so it was a little bit off-centered, but it still worked. Obviously, as you go, just go ahead and check your progress. Have a ferrule with you, so this way when you sink the drill bit, you can then go ahead and check it out and see if it fits properly. And as you can see, the ferrules pretty much just drop straight in. The clear coat and paint and everything kind of make those holes a little bit smaller, so towards the end of this video, I actually have to use a little bit of a dowel stick and a hammer to get those to fit in properly. All right, and after 2 weeks, you can then go ahead and sand everything flat for your next can of sealer. Again, this is entirely up to you. If you want to use a wood grain filler, by all means, be my guest. Don't knock me for doing my own thing. Sand everything flat. I think at this point I'm using 400 grit. Activate your second can of clear coat and get that ready to apply your next can of sealer or clear coat. No real scientific process to this. Again, just go ahead and use the entire can. I think, again, I'm probably getting around 3 to 4 good coats out of this can. After your last coat of clear coat, or aka sealer, go ahead and let that cure for about another 2 weeks. And then you can go ahead and sand it flat and move on to your next step, which will be primer. Now, I'm using a white primer for this body specifically. The white primer will be a good base. I'll obviously sand this flat once it has cured. Normally I give the primer about a week minimum to cure and shrink. Apply a couple of coats of primer, let it flash off, 5 to 10 minutes in between each coat. I think I probably put 2 to 3 coats of primer on this and then sanded it flat. At this point, what I would say is sand the body with something around 400 or 600 grit sandpaper. Just make sure it's all flattened out. I'm not really worried about breaking through the primer at this point because we're still going to have to apply a black base coat for our color. Just make sure you get all the little nooks and crannies, and then you can go ahead and wipe it down. I normally use just rubbing alcohol, let it cure or dry off for about 10 minutes before I move on to my next step. All right, and at this point, I'm basically just going to apply a black base coat. This black base coat is going to act as a good base for the 3-stage flip color. This base was made for my friend Jacob. He is in a band. They're called Disposed. They're pretty fucking awesome, so go ahead and check them out. I will link their stuff down in the description below. After you apply your base color, if you're just doing a solid color at this point, give it like 35 to 45 minutes. Let it flash off. Let all the solvents evaporate from the paint, and then you can go ahead and move on to clear coat. But because we're doing a 3-stage color, I gave it probably about a half hour. I let it flash off, and then I started to apply the color, and the color is called Chroma Coat Cyan. It is from a company called Custom Paints. They're located in Florida, but they also have a location, or their original location, which is in the United Kingdom. For these 3-stage pearls, the more coats of the color you apply, the heavier the effect or the heavier the flip becomes, and the more pronounced those color flips change. So I think I ended up using the entire can on this base, which probably gave me around 4 or 5 coats. You don't want to apply too much to make it run, but also you don't want to apply too light of a coat or it starts to look kind of dry. So just make sure you're doing like a nice even medium style coat. You don't want it too wet. Obviously, like I said, you don't want it to run, and you don't want it too dry because that might cause issues down the road, or it might just make the finish look a little off. Now in this video, it was actually really humid, and I think it had actually rained at this point, or it was getting ready to rain. So the paint actually needed a little bit longer to flash off in between each coat because you don't want to trap the humidity in between each coat. Just keep applying the pearl until you are happy with the results and the flip. If you are choosing to do something similar to this, again, I'm waiting probably, I think it was around 25 minutes in between each coat. I think just because it was so humid outside that I was having to give a little bit extra time in between each one of the coats. So this way there wasn't a lot of humidity getting trapped in between the layers. Once you're happy with the final results and you're ready to clear coat, give that a good probably half hour, 45 minutes to flash off. This will help in the long run, and it'll also ensure that you don't get any sort of solvent pop or anything like that. Activate your clear coat. I'm using Custom Can's 2K clear coat. Obviously, I've done many videos on how to activate this stuff, but essentially you just take this little ring, pull the little tab down on the bottom, twist it so this way the bladder inside gets cut by the blade, and then shake it up for a good 2 minutes. Once you're ready to start applying your clear coat, like I said, after the very last coat of this, I wait probably around 45 minutes or so. Activate the clear coat can, and then go ahead and start applying your clear. Obviously, at this point, you want to ensure that you're not making it too heavy and too wet. Clear coat itself can be cut and buffed. On the very, very last coat, I would say you're probably okay to make it like a really heavy or like a very wet coat. Obviously, you don't want to apply so much that it runs, but the nice thing with gloss clear is it's easier to cut and buff at that point. Just keep applying the clear coat. Give it probably, anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, I would say, in between each coat. Obviously, you just want to make sure that you're not allowing so much time in between coats that the clear coat itself loses an adhesion point, but I would say probably anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes in between each coat for the clear coat, especially if it's very humid outside like it was for this video. I think I recorded this back in August or September of 2024, somewhere around there. I forget. Anyways, after you are done, it should look like this. Let the clear coat and the body and everything cure, I would say a minimum, this is just my own personal opinion, for a minimum of 3 weeks. This is just from my own personal experience, so take that into consideration. As for the neck, I had some issues with this, so we had to widen the actual holes for the actual tuners themselves. I ran into an issue. I was able to get a couple of these to ream out correctly, and I was able to actually put these in with no problem. The issue for this was the fact that when I got towards the top of the headstock, I ended up splitting the wood, which I actually ended up having to glue the piece back in and do a bunch of finish work and stuff like that. Here's some pictures of it. Basically, long story short, when I was drilling the headstock for the larger tuners, I ended up pretty much splitting the headstock in the wood. So I basically just had to glue that all back in. Once you're ready to assemble, and if you are installing ferrules like I am on this base, I use this method. So take a soldering iron, heat the ferrule up a little bit, and this will help soften the paint around it. Obviously, probably somewhere between 3 to 5 seconds tops. You don't want to leave the soldering iron in the actual ferrule for too long because it will make the paint bubble up and give you issues down the road. So maybe 3 to 5 seconds, 10 seconds tops, I would think maybe. Obviously, you just want to heat it up just enough so this way the ferrule itself is hot and it's able to be tapped into the wood. I use a dowel stick and a little rubber mallet to just slightly tap those in. Obviously, I'm trying to take pictures and do all this stuff at the same time. Just take a dowel stick or something, put it into the ferrule, and then lightly tap those into place. It makes it a little bit easier, and then it should look something like that. Obviously, as you can see, the B string on that, a little off-centered, but I still think it looks pretty all right. After that, you can then go ahead and pretty much put it all together. We're using some Bartolini's in this, all the gold hardware, which Jacob was the one that pretty much picked all this stuff out. I think I ended up choosing the Bartolini's for him just because I wanted him to have something good. I did a lot of research for those soap bar pickups. This is another thing. I'm going to throw some pictures up here. This is always why I tell people to just, before you start doing any prep work or anything, just go through and line everything up. If you have to fill and drill holes, I've made plenty of videos on how to build guitars. I'm not a professional at this by any means, but from what I have learned through my own experience, before you start doing anything, line up all of your holes, re-drill any of that stuff that needs to be re-drilled, because this football style jack, it kind of lined up, but also one of the screws didn't really line up entirely very well. Then I went ahead and threw some copper tape into the cavities and all that stuff. After the clear coat has dried for a couple of weeks, you can then go ahead and slap it all together and install all of your new hardware, pickups, solder everything in, and it should look something like this. So let's go ahead and hear what the bass sounds like with the Bartolini pickups in it, and then we'll come back and talk about this bass. Alright, so that build was somewhat crazy for me, so let me go ahead and dive into this and talk about this guitar, or 5-string bass guitar, real quick. So, I don't know if you guys can really see the color shift. I mean, obviously we threw some B-roll and stuff in there, but let's go ahead and talk about this. So, basically, long story short, my friend Jacob, he plays in a band called Disposed. They're up from Virginia. So I thought it would be cool to make a base for him. Basically, long story short is I was just kind of bored and I thought it would be cool to make a base for him and his band. Basically for him. But I wanted to do something special and I wanted to do something cool and kind of, I guess, maybe throw my name in the ring, my name in the hat. For people that want to build guitars and stuff like that. So, I mean, not that I am a full-time luthier, but I felt that this project, building something for somebody other than myself, would have been pretty cool. So, the Beck's Gear kit itself costs $180 plus tax and shipping. Now, with that, you get pretty much everything in the box. Obviously, we did the unboxing, which I will link up here somewhere. But basically, you get all the pickups, all the tuners, pretty much everything like that. So at the end of the day, so basically this was a string through bridge style kit. We did turn it into a string through. I tried my best, and the E or B string, I should say, that ferrule got a little wonky, so it's actually a little bit further back. Not crazy about that. It's not terrible, like you don't really notice it, especially when you're holding it and playing it. You only really notice it if you do look at the back. I tried to paint this cover here. I think I just put too much clear coat on too quickly. I didn't paint it with the body, so it doesn't really match too well anyways. But it was basically just pure black, so I kind of wanted to make it match. As far as the pickups go, we put Bartolini's in here. I think they were the JB or JCs. I don't really remember exactly because Bartolini just kind of chooses a size, and then corresponding to that, it's like JA, JB, JC, JD. Anyways, so we threw some of those in there, both style. They're a little bit smaller than the pickup cavities. I don't know if you can really see that in there, but they don't fit 100% like the stock pickups in this did, which kind of sucks because I wanted these to actually fit flush. But anyways, we threw some gold hardware in there, so this way all gold hardware for him. Hip shot bridge. So basically for this, when I did the string throughs, I basically mounted this first. I plugged all the old original holes, mounted this, and then basically put little dots and drilled with a small drill bit through those. And then once I took that off, I went ahead and put it on the drill press. 500K pots in here, so basically 2 volumes and 2 tones. So one for the bridge, one for the neck pickup, 1 tone for the bridge, 1 tone for the neck pickup. I didn't want to do anything super crazy because, again, I'm not really a luthier per se. So I just try to keep this as simple as possible. I've never actually kind of wired up a 2 pickup guitar, just mostly because I don't necessarily like 2 pickups. I end up not using the neck at all. So anyways, the neck itself, we're going to talk about this really quick. So basically, as you can see, the neck or the headstock is painted. So we threw some Schraler light bass tuners in there. I tried to get them as straight and as uniform as possible. My weakest point, mostly because I don't have a jig for putting in tuners, is I have to do it kind of by hand and finagle it. I don't really know how to explain that, but basically I put the tuners in, I kind of tighten them down, I make marks, and then I drill them. And if the drill marks aren't correct, I go back in, I plug them, and then I re-drill them. It kind of sucks. I probably should get a jig, especially if I plan on doing actual guitars and building them for people. I left this truss rod cover alone. I just left that black. Threw some of the original screws in there because I didn't have gold ones that were that small. Anyways, so I got those all in. So when I was drilling the holes for the tuners, the drill bit was the correct size, but towards the end here between these two, so basically the E and the A string, because they're so far forward on the headstock that when I was drilling the hole, it split the wood, and I ended up having to basically glue that in place and then use like filler, like wood filler and stuff to reshape that hole. I clear coated the headstock just to make sure that it sealed everything, and then I painted it and just tried to match it with that because basically that's kind of what he wanted. Gold Dunlop strap locks, some curved, or I don't really know what you call that. They're not flat topped, but basically some gold knobs on here, gold ferrules, gold neck joint screws, and as far as the strings that he wanted, they're Dimasarios or Diazarios, however you pronounce those. 130 through 45, I think it is. Other than that, I mean, this thing came out pretty sweet. So as far as the paint goes, let's go ahead and break down the cost of this. So basically, like I said, the kit was $180 plus shipping and tax. Hardware was about $127. That included the screws, the neck screws, and the neck joint bushings. The mini base 500K pots, so basically the 500K A and the 500K B. I also put in a 0.47 UF capacitor in this for the tone because I just kind of wanted to darken that tone up. They do play like a hardcore music, so I just wanted to make it where it wasn't sort of jazzy sounding, I guess. Or maybe more jazzy? I don't know. Anyways, so, and then the wiring kit for this, basically everything for that came out to $127. The bridge itself was a little bit more than I wanted to spend, but it was kind of the only cool string through gold bridge that I can find. So that was $165 for the hip shot bridge. And then the Shalers, the BM light bass tuners, for the 5 of them cost about $190. The Bartolini pickups were expensive. I was originally going to put some Seymour Duncans in here, but I wanted to get him something that was a little bit more unique. So I went with the Bartolinis after doing a lot of research and listening to a bunch of other reviews. And then as far as the paint goes, basically we used 3 cans of clear coat. 2 cans of clear coat were used as a sealer to seal this body. 1 can of clear coat was used for the paint. There was 1 can of white primer, 1 can of black base coat, and 1 can of custom paints chroma coat cyan. And basically the paint came out to $130. Grand total, it was $1,179. Now, it was a little bit more than I was willing to spend, but I think for a friend and making him something cool that he will use with his band playing on stage, I think that this is well deserved. So Jacob, hopefully you like this thing. I have been posting pictures and videos and stuff of it on my Instagram and Facebook pages and stuff like that too. As far as the paint goes, I know I've said it before in other videos, but if you do plan on painting with automotive paint, as far as the sealer and stuff goes, so I just want to run back over this really quick. The first can of sealer, you can let that sit for about a week. Just let it cure and shrink, because that clear coat will have a tendency to shrink after a little bit. The second can, I would recommend after you seal it the first time, let it cure for a week. The second can of sealer, after you flat sand this down, go ahead and let that cure for at least a minimum of 2 weeks, because basically once that shrinks, if you don't give it long enough to cure and shrink onto the guitar, if you go straight over it, what may happen is eventually you'll notice that the paint actually shrinks altogether once you've clear coated everything, and your final product is cut and buff like this. So if you don't let it cure long enough, essentially what could happen in the future is you will start to notice that the paint shrinks, and you'll get like weird little like spots where you can see like weird divots and like basically where the paint kind of like squeezes together, and there's just like weird ripples and stuff in the paint. So take that into account if you guys do plan on using or going with custom paints. Their paint is pretty affordable and they have some pretty cool stuff. So just, you know, if you're looking to paint your guitar and you want something cool, I say go with custom paints. I mean, they got candies, they got these awesome shifts. The other one that I really like is Chrome Coat Fireball. It basically goes from black to red to like a almost like burnt copper color. So it's pretty dope. Same with the Fojo guitar build that I did. I'll link that up here if you guys want to watch that. But I was going to use their custom paints as Base Pearls Sugar Apple. Unfortunately, I just kept having issues with that, so I ended up painting it just like a base green metallic. I actually had a can, which I originally was going to use for another guitar. So I just ended up using that can of base green metallic. Anyways, so hopefully you guys like this video. If you did, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. If you didn't like this video, also give it a thumbs up, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons. I'm Jordan, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.